So, you walk into Technova Solutions, right big, shiny tech company. All glass walls, open-plan offices, that kind of vibe. Everyone's young, buzzing with energy, MacBooks glowing, talking AI and blockchain like it's the air they breathe. It's supposed to be this innovative, forward-thinking place. You know, all about fresh ideas and pushing boundaries. But here's the thing. There's this old guy, Mr. Raymond. He's the janitor. And honestly, he's a stark contrast to all that youthful exuberance. He starts super early, long before most people even think about hitting their first snooze button. He's always in this faded, old uniform, and the way he moves, it's just so quiet, you barely hear him. He's a man of few words, almost never joining in on the office chatter. Lunchtime, forget about him grabbing some trendy poke bowl. He's usually tucked away in a quiet corner of the cafeteria. Just him and his packed lunchbox, while everyone else is ordering from fancy apps, loud and proud. And that difference, it's not just about his clothes or his habits. It's a target for a certain group of young hotshots. These rising stars in product development, we're talking Tom, Brian, Zoe, Mr. Raymond, is practically tailor-made for their whispered jokes and snide remarks. They've got this whole routine, these thinly veiled digs about how behind the times he is. Does he even know what Wi-Fi is? Tom would murmur to Brian, just loud enough for Raymond to catch as he pushed his cleaning cart past. Look at him eating his packed lunch, probably some vintage recipe from the Stone Age. Zoe would giggle, her eyes dripping with a particular kind of youthful contempt. And yeah, Raymond heard it. He always did. Those comments, not directly aimed at him, but certainly loud enough for him. They just hung in the air. But you know, the most surprising thing isn't the cruelty. It's his reaction, or lack thereof. He never raises his voice, never argues. His face usually just calm, unreadable. He just keeps on working, diligently, quietly wiping down surfaces, arranging chairs. But if you were really watching, you'd notice something. His eyes. They aren't blank. They're moving, constantly, observing. Every little detail in the office environment, the way groups interact, how management conducts themselves, even the subtle shifts in the company's unspoken culture. It's like he's a hidden camera, recording everything without anyone ever knowing. His silence isn't disinterest. It's a sharp, calculated observation. It's almost unnerving. If you stop to think about it, this whole atmosphere, this casual cruelty, it's just accepted. Like it's part of the tech startup vibe. These young, bright minds, they're so focused on innovation and disruption, they seem to have forgotten basic human decency. Or maybe they just think it doesn't apply to people like Mr. Raymond. He's a background character, a fixture, something to be moved around, or ignored, or even ridiculed. They walk on the floors he's just shined, sit at desks he's wiped clean, use bathrooms he's sanitized, completely oblivious to the person behind the labor. They see the result, not the human effort. And then there's Mia. She's new to the team, and you can tell she's different. Long dark hair, intelligent eyes, and there's this genuine curiosity about her, a kindness that feels almost out of place in this environment. She's the one who gets this uncomfortable feeling, this quiet unease about how her colleagues treat Mr. Raymond. She sees the way they sweep past him, acting like he's invisible, the way they laugh behind his back, and she feels a silent indignation, a deep sense of injustice. Mia. She actually believes that everyone deserves to be treated with politeness, regardless of their job title or their appearance. So sometimes, you'd see her deliberately slow down, or offer a small, gentle smile as she passed Mr. Raymond. Just a small gesture, hoping her quiet courtesy might somehow soften the cold indifference he faces day in and day out. It's a small act, but it speaks volumes about her character, especially in contrast to the prevailing attitude. Mr. Raymond, for his part, never really reacts to any of it, not to the harsh words, not to the dismissive glances, but he also doesn't miss anything. His face usually remains still, devoid of obvious emotion. He just keeps going, diligently, quietly cleaning and organizing. But that look in his eyes, it's not empty. It's incredibly perceptive, always scanning, analyzing. From how project teams interact, to how managers give directions, even to the subtle shifts in the company's unspoken behavioral code. He's like a hidden sensor, gathering data that no one else is aware of. His silence isn't a sign of indifference. It's a testament to his keen observation skills, a calculated patience. It's almost as if he's conducting his own quiet, personal audit of the entire company culture, one unnoticed interaction at a time. The young hotshots, busy with their tech talk and their ambitious plans, are completely blind to the silent scrutiny of the old man pushing a mop. They think they're the ones building the future, but they're being quietly, meticulously, evaluated by someone they don't even see. So, the casual disdain for Mr. Raymond. It wasn't just staying in the whispers. It started getting bolder, more direct. You know little things, but they cut deep. And then, one afternoon, Mia saw it. She was heading towards the break room, the one with the coffee machine and that perpetually lumpy sofa. And there they were, Tom and Brian, standing by the counter, looking smug. Tom had just deliberately, casually, dumped a whole mug of coffee onto the polished floor. A dark, ugly puddle was spreading, right there next to the counter. Brian was just standing there, chuckling. "What are you doing?" Mia asked, her voice tight with discomfort. "Oh, nothing," Tom said, shrugging, all innocent. "Just making work for the old guy. He's got too much free time, you know." He glanced at Brian, and they both burst out laughing, their words dripping with open contempt for Mr. Raymond, as if his labor was a joke, a thing to be manufactured for their amusement. Right then, Mr. Raymond walked into the break room, pushing his cleaning cart. He saw the coffee puddle. He saw the two guys, standing there, snickering. He didn't say a word. He just quietly put his mop down, bent over, and started cleaning. And there it was again, that tiny, almost imperceptible smile on his face. It was baffling to Mia. Calm, yet somehow knowing, hinting at something far deeper than simple resignation. After that incident, Mia couldn't shake it. She felt this growing urge, this need to know more about Mr. Raymond. She started going out of her way to talk to him when he was working. Just small talk, you know, asking about his day, the weather, little things no one else ever bothered with. "And Mr. Raymond," he always replied, his voice a low, gentle rumble, but he rarely spoke about himself. He'd ask her questions instead, about her work, her aspirations, her day. He listened more than he spoke, his eyes filled with this deep understanding, like he could read her thoughts. Mia felt this strange connection with the old man, a sincerity she rarely found among her ambitious young colleagues. She began to realize his silence wasn't emptiness. It was a vast reservoir. Then, one morning, a company-wide email from HR landed in everyone's inbox. The subject line itself sparked a buzz, Announcement high-level strategic investor visit. The email stated that a critically important strategic investor for the corporation would be visiting the branch next week to assess operations and make significant decisions. The office exploded with speculation. High-level strategic investor must be one of those famous sharks from Silicon Valley, Tom practically crowed, his eyes alight with ambition. Get your suits ready. Get your presentation slides polished. This is our chance to shine, Brian chimed in, excitedly discussing prominent figures in the tech and finance world, hoping to impress this big shot. Everyone started picturing a powerful young leader, sharply dressed, someone who would arrive and change everything. Ideally for their personal gain, they started meticulously preparing projects, rehearsing presentations, even competing to buy the latest suits. The energy was electric, a mix of frantic preparation and soaring expectations. Amidst all this fervent anticipation, Mr. Raymond just kept to his quiet routine. He moved past the buzzing groups, his steps silent. He listened, but offered no comment, no outward reaction. Yet, if you were paying close attention, you might have caught a fleeting, profound look in his eyes, a deep, unspoken understanding of their excitement, their hopes, their blind spots. And then, one late night, Mia was still at the office, tying up a project. As she was about to leave, she walked past the main conference room, the big one, usually reserved for the most important meetings, with that huge glass wall and the framed photos of the company's original founders. The room was dark, only ambient light from the hallway seeping in. Mia suddenly stopped. Through the glass, she saw a figure standing there, silently gazing up at the wall. It was Mr. Raymond. He stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the largest photo, the one featuring 5 smiling, young men, pioneers who had laid the groundwork for Teknova. His posture, even in the dim light, exuded a profound thoughtfulness, completely unlike that of a janitor checking for security or cleaning up. Mia felt a powerful surge of curiosity. She couldn't understand why he was there, or why his gaze held so much emotion as he looked at those old photographs. She decided to keep quiet, and quietly slipped away, carrying a heavy, unanswered question in her mind. Okay, so after that weird scene with Mr. Raymond in the dark conference room, things took another turn. The very next day, Mr. Raymond was just gone. He wasn't there, no mop, no quiet presence, just an empty corner where he usually sat during lunch for the staff, especially those who barely noticed him anyway. It was odd, a little unsettling. Even, the polished floors still seemed clean, the trash bins not overflowing, but his absence left a subtle, almost imperceptible void. For Tom and Brian, it was a relief. Finally, Tom muttered, stretching dramatically. No more old man making me feel bad about my lunch choices. Brian chuckled. They figured he was probably sick, or maybe finally retired. Good riddance, in their minds. But for Mia, it was different. Mr. Raymond's absence felt significant. She remembered his calm demeanor, his knowing eyes, and that strange moment in the conference room, driven by a quiet curiosity, almost a hunch. Mia decided to do something no one else would think of. She went to the company's internal digital library, a vast, rarely used archive of old corporate documents and historical records. She typed in Raymond and hit search. And then she found it. An old company document, dusty with digital neglect, dated back decades. It was a founder's agreement, detailing the early days of Teknova. And there it was, a name that sent a jolt through her Raymond Nguyen co-founder. The document detailed how he, along with 4 others, had laid the groundwork for the tech giant that Teknova Solutions had become. It outlined his crucial role in the company's genesis, and a later amendment noting he had sold a majority of his shares years ago to step back from the limelight, transitioning into a less visible advisory role, effectively moving behind the scenes. Mia's breath hitched. Co-founder. The janitor. It was a colossal, unbelievable twist. She started digging deeper, cross-referencing old articles, obscure corporate reports. The pieces started to fall into place, forming a picture that was astonishing and deeply ironic. Raymond Nguyen, the genius who helped build this empire, had chosen to spend his days quietly mopping floors and observing the man they laughed at, the man they called just the janitor, was one of the very architects of their success. He wasn't just a former co-founder. His continued presence, though unseen, suggested a watchful eye, an unannounced audit of the very culture he had helped create. Meanwhile, oblivious to the bombshell Mia was uncovering, Tom and Brian were in full impress the investor mode. The news of the high-level strategic investor had them buzzing with nervous energy and inflated egos. They were convinced this was their big break. They spent hours in meeting rooms, practicing their presentations, rehearsing their ambitious sales pitches, their voices booming with forced confidence. They meticulously selected their sharpest suits, ironed their crispest shirts, and polished their expensive shoes. They even started liberally sprinkling their conversations with leadership philosophies and buzzwords they'd gleaned from management books. Convinced this was how you impressed someone truly powerful. They'd quote market leaders, talk about disruption, and strategize about synergies, all while, just days before, they were laughing at the old janitor eating his weird, packed lunch. The hypocrisy was staggering, but they were too consumed by their own self-importance to see it. They envisioned a grand entrance for this mysterious investor, a dramatic reveal that would validate their own perceived importance. They speculated wildly, "It has to be someone like Elon Musk," Tom would declare, puffing out his chest. "Or maybe a venture capitalist from Sequoia, someone who understands our vision." They were blind to the possibility that the vision being evaluated was far more fundamental than their quarterly sales figures. Mia, now armed with her startling discovery, kept silent. She didn't confront Tom or Brian. She didn't warn anyone. She wasn't entirely sure what to do with this knowledge, but a chilling certainty settled in her gut. She had a feeling, a deep, unsettling intuition, that the strategic investor meeting was going to be far more eventful and far more humbling than anyone in Teknova Solutions could possibly imagine. She knew more than anyone else in that office, and the weight of that knowledge was both empowering and terrifying. The stage was set for a truth bomb, one that would redefine everything they thought they knew about worth, power, and respect. The air on the 12th floor of Teknova Solutions that morning was thick with a nervous, almost frenetic energy. This was it, the big day. Everyone was gathered in the main conference room, a sprawling space usually reserved for major product launches or investor pitches. The room buzzed with hushed conversations and the soft rustle of expensive fabrics. Tom and Brian were front and center, their suits perfectly pressed, their smiles practiced, radiating an almost desperate eagerness. They stood beside a state-of-the-art presentation screen, ready to dazzle the high-level strategic investor with their meticulously crafted slides and rehearsed speeches. Lynn, the HR representative, moved with an air of heightened importance, ensuring every detail was perfect. Mia, on the other hand, stood quietly at the back, a knot of anticipation tightening in her stomach. She knew something was coming, something the others couldn't possibly imagine. The clock on the wall ticked agonizingly slowly. Every eye in the room was fixed on the large, ornate conference room doors. The moment stretched, thick with expectation. Then, with a soft, almost imperceptible click, the doors began to open. A collective intake of breath swept through the room. A hush fell, absolute and immediate. All eyes strained forward, ready to witness the grand entrance of the powerful figure who held their collective future in his hands. But it wasn't the CEO. It wasn't a sleek-suited venture capitalist. It wasn't a high-ranking corporate director from another branch. It was Mr. Raymond Nguyen. He walked in, not with a mop or a cleaning cart, but in an impeccably tailored dark suit. His white hair was neatly combed, his posture straight, his presence radiating an undeniable, quiet authority. Around his neck, hanging from a simple lanyard, was a name tag that read, Board Member Co-Founder. The entire room froze. Every single person was stunned. Gasps, suppressed and sharp, echoed in the sudden, profound silence. Tom and Brian, who moments ago had been practically vibrating with confident energy, became utterly still, their faces draining of all color, their eyes, wide with disbelief and dawning horror, were fixed on the man they had routinely dismissed, the man they had called just the janitor. The realization struck them like a physical blow. Their carefully constructed reality, built on layers of arrogance and assumption, shattered around them. Their meticulously rehearsed speeches, their polished slides, all seemed to vanish into thin air. Mia, standing at his back, felt a quiet sense of vindication. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. She hadn't been wrong. The pieces she'd put together, the silent observations she'd made, the gut feeling she'd followed it all culminated in this moment. Mr. Raymond walked slowly to the front of the room, his gaze sweeping over the frozen faces of the employees. There was no anger in his eyes, no overt fury. Instead, there was a profound, almost sorrowful understanding. He looked at each person, letting his gaze linger for a moment, letting the truth sink in, allowing them to fully grasp the weight of their past actions. He paused at the podium, picked up the microphone, and his voice, familiar yet now imbued with an undeniable power, filled the room. It was calm, gentle, but firm, carrying the weight of decades of experience and a recent, poignant observation. "I used to scrub these floors when there were only 5 of us," he said, his voice resonating with history, with the very foundation of the company they now stood in. "I came back to see if the company still deserved to grow." No one spoke, no one moved. The silence was absolute, broken only by the soft, controlled tone of Mr. Raymond's voice. His words were not a threat, but a statement of deeply held principle, a stark reflection of the values he sought to find, and had, in many cases, found missing. Then his gaze shifted, seeking out Mia at the back of the room. A genuine, warm smile finally broke across his face, a smile that conveyed true appreciation and recognition. "Thank you," he said, his voice clear and resonant, directed solely at her. "Thank you for remembering that respect doesn't wear a suit." The revelation was complete. The masks had fallen. The man they had looked down on, the man they had called just the janitor, was the very architect of their success, the ultimate decision-maker, the true guardian of Technova's legacy. And he had just delivered the most humbling, unforgettable lesson of their lives. The meeting ended not with applause, but with a palpable, stunned silence. Mr. Raymond Nguyen, the co-founder they had scorned, left the conference room as quietly as he had arrived, his posture straight, his presence resonating with a new, undeniable gravity. He didn't issue grand pronouncements, nor did he linger to witness the immediate fallout. He simply walked out, leaving behind a room full of shell-shocked employees grappling with the seismic shift in their reality. The realization that the janitor was the man who signed their paychecks, the very architect of their success, was a bitter, humbling truth. The aftershocks were swift and precise. Later that same day, an internal memo from HR circulated, confirming what many already feared. Tom and Brian, the ringleaders of the derision, were reassigned to the customer support department. The memo, though formal, carried a subtle sting, stating their new roles would place them closer to the company's true human interaction points. It was a clear, calculated demotion, designed not just as punishment, but as a direct consequence for their lack of empathy and respect. The front lines of customer support, a role often seen as entry-level and less glamorous, would force them to confront the very human element they had so carelessly dismissed. But amidst these immediate repercussions, a different kind of message reached Mia. She wasn't reprimanded. She was invited. An email from Mr. Raymond's office landed in her inbox, asking her to join a newly formed Culture and Integrity Initiative team. This wasn't a punishment. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition of her unique perspective and her unwavering sense of decency. Her role would be to help shape a more humble and integrity-driven work environment, building on the very values she had instinctively upheld. It was a profound validation of her quiet kindness, a testament that true worth isn't always loud or visible. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere at Technova Solutions slowly, fundamentally changed. The casual arrogance that once permeated the open-plan offices began to dissipate. Whispers were replaced by more considerate conversations. Employees no longer brushed past the cleaning staff or the security guards as if they were invisible. They made eye contact. They offered smiles. They said thank you. The memory of Mr. Raymond's quiet presence and his powerful reveal became an ingrained lesson. Then, one morning, a new addition appeared in the main lobby, near the very spot where Mr. Raymond used to blend into the background. It was an old, framed photograph, not sleek or modern, but warm and nostalgic. It depicted the 5 original co-founders of Technova, taken decades ago, young and full of dreams, and there, in the center, smiling brightly, was a much younger Raymond Nguyen, his arm around a colleague, a sense of camaraderie radiating from the sepia-toned image. In his other hand, almost playfully, he held a mop. It was a silent, powerful emblem. The image served as a constant, gentle reminder of where the company truly came from and the values it was built upon. The man they had laughed at, the man they had called just the janitor, was not only the source of their paychecks, but the very soul of the company. The lesson was clear. Etched into the very fabric of Technova's renewed culture, true leadership isn't just about strategy or profit. It's about the fundamental respect you show to every single person, regardless of their uniform or perceived place. The quietest one in the room, it turned out, held the most profound power.